science. I'm an ecologist. Spent many years of my life as a researcher in the University of Cambridge, particularly specializing in the ecology of rainforests, but most particularly in the ecology of what happens when people slash and burn, especially repeatedly. You can see there the estimates for carbon emissions. UNESCO estimated somewhere between 250, 300 million families attempting to subsist by this. Back in the 1980s, when I began the study, science couldn't properly explain what is happening in this soil. There was confusion and in some cases contradiction. And this site is probably about 60 years old. It's been used repeatedly, perhaps every 4 or 5 years, and is almost completely sterile. The entire rainforest landscape has been dominated by invasive grasses. You see it all over West Africa. In this case, we're seeing it over most of Central America as well. I took a lot of soil samples back to Cambridge in '86 and spent a lot of time blundering around making mistakes. But I was fortunate in making a couple of breakthroughs in understanding what actually fails from the apparent fertility of a rainforest, the most productive ecosystem we have on the planet, to reduce it to this. Is the availability of phosphorus turned out to be the key element. To design a model that might be sustainable, we couldn't take the model of the Green Revolution, which analyzed farming systems. The only model that we had available was the rainforest itself, to understand its form and its function, how it achieves that productivity on the world's poorest soils is the key to a sustainable alternative. And what came out of 7 years of trials is a system called alley cropping, in which nitrogen-fixing trees are planted across the contours of the land, roughly 4 meters apart. And we have discovered that they need not only rock phosphate, but also other mineral supplement. This landscape has been slashed and burnt for about 100 years and is almost completely devoid of plant nutrients. This is how the system looks after 24 months. It's completely recaptured the site from the grasses and is ready to use. You're looking here at natural leaf fall and complete elimination of the weeds by shade. This is the first pruning operation. You can see deep green mulch covering the soil as physical protection against strong rain and also direct sunshine. You can see that the trees are left. This is a plot that was trimmed about 2 weeks before the pictures. The mulch has gone pale and is now reflecting solar energy back into the sky, and you can just see rows of maize seedlings pushing through the mulch. The weeds will be germinating under that but can't get through. But what you can also see is a massive amount of domestic firewood produced about 100 meters from where the family need it. This is the heart of what we're calling the Guama model. Guama is Inga in Honduras, transforming landscapes and livelihoods from that to that. Alley cropping for basic grains, food security, and cash crops, things like pepper, vanilla, etc. And surrounding this, Inga associated with fruit trees, especially cacao, rambutan, avocado. The Inga is their only source of nitrogen. It's sustainable. We've now brought it up to 275 families in 2 river catchments to demonstrate to decision makers that this is replicable across entire landscapes. UN are interested, and the Honduran government has just written this into its national program for restoration of landscapes.
Thank you, Mike. Really well done. Impressive findings. Of the families that are involved in this project, do you have any of the economics about what it means to their livelihoods, the impacts on their families?
Yeah. We're getting stories now of people who had taken the decision to go to the United States as mojados, wetbacks, and whose decision was reversed by seeing their neighbors successfully taking, for example, big crops of maize heads this size, from ground that has been regenerated after generations, perhaps 20, 30 years since it was able to produce a crop. One of our best examples is called Damas, and he said, I've made the decision to go and leave my family. And he said, when I saw Eli, it's his neighbor, he's also our extension man, I saw the plot killing the grasses and then producing the maize, I changed my mind. And he's now got, I think, about 3 hectares of alleys in various different uses. He can rotate 2 sowings a year, and he's got about 3 or 4 hectares of rambutan, which is just beginning to produce with the Inga, and he's a very happy man. We're getting stories like this all the time now. Thanks, yeah. William.
What's your strategy for behavior change? Because obviously, to scale this to the levels that is going to lead to transformation requires huge amounts of behavior change amongst particularly smallholder farmers. What is your strategy for scale, and particularly how would you get farmers to convert to this who have been used to slash and burn for generations?
Yeah, you're right about generations. It's absolutely true. The answer is demonstration. You cannot preach. You must demonstrate. We bring in, the strategy we have is we bring in any families who are interested. We ask them to sort of get together. We can cope with about a dozen to 16 people. We take them to the demo farm, and they get to see it. They can ask whatever questions they want, and they get to feel it. They can see how the thing works. If they want to sign up, we will immediately give them bags for nursery, 5,000 bags. There's 5,000 trees per hectare is a very serious planting. And then as soon as the seed is available and they've got the nursery ready, we give them the seed, we get it to them. And our extension guys support them in this. We don't give money, but we do give all the materials necessary. Now, the strategy we're employing at the moment, we began in 2012 with the intention of recruiting 40 families a year up to about 200. Then concentrating, because that's 5 years, then concentrating on those same families, establishing more Inga for cash crops. In our case, the very popular one is black pepper. And I can tell you the stuff is fantastic. It's organic and it's dynamite. It blows your head off. And the idea then is, at the same time, we're introducing the more widespread agricultural, so the cacao associated with the Inga. We're getting that in the ground, but little by little. So they've got a steady income. They've got the main cropping episode. They've got cash crops. That makes them less vulnerable. And then they've got cacao, which basically produces something 11 months of the year. So it's a steady income. That's transforming their lives. And what we've got up to at the moment, the boys in the team just can't say no to anyone. So we've got 275 families and about, well, they say hundreds more now coming in. But that wasn't the case in 2012. There were a lot of doubters, a lot of people quite understandably reluctant to adopt this. It's a revolutionary system. My kids are hungry and you're telling me to plant trees. You're crazy. That's an understandable reaction. So I think since that time, what are we now? We're in year 8. Sheer persistence from the team, consistency of message, and the witness that they're seeing of the success of this system. But I think above all, we had an appalling El Nino event in 2015, 2016, which I think tipped the balance. That during 2015, we had 7 months of drought. And for instance, families who were ready to start pruning the first time in May, June, simply couldn't. They didn't dare touch anything. I thought we were going to lose 250,000 trees. It continued till September. In July, the trees defoliated. I thought, we've lost it. September, the whole lot came back. December, the canopy is complete. The families prune. They take the first crop that they've done for years. And then March the 21st, we had the most violent rainstorm since Hurricane Mitch in '98. which I witnessed, I was there when it hit. And all the conventional crops were washed off the steep hillside, exactly as you've seen in the pictures, except the crops protected by the mulch. The beans were lost all their flowers, but reflowered. Every family with that system took a crop. That tipped it. We've now got hundreds of people. So I think the answer, sorry it's such a long answer, but persistence and demonstration is the answer to your question.